All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, November 14th, 2014, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules and Zorie. You're on UCY.tv. Good morning, Zorie. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing okay. How about you?
All right, we have snow on the ground.
Oh, look at you.
Snow on the ground. It's just a dusting. But I think I found the appropriate cup. It is black, and it says Arctic Cat.
That sounds appropriate.
Yeah, it is damn chilly. Actually, let me grab my cell phone. My computer that has the temperature widget on the side happens to be a Windows Vista computer, which sucks itself dry of memory every 24 hours or so none of your widgets continue to work. Oh, it's 31 degrees and light snow.
Wow.
So get me
53 here.
Well, it's not too bad.
No,
53, you could still walk around in at least a T-shirt, kind of.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing something, yeah.
Yeah, not sitting around.
Yeah.
Like you are right now.
Yeah.
You probably have sweatpants and a sweatshirt on.
I do. And my two pairs of thick socks and my slippers.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. Socks, just don't walk into the bathroom after someone just got out of the shower in your socks.
Oh, no.
I did that this morning. I'm like, wet socks. It's just what I wanted when it's 30 outside.
Right, makes it double cold.
Exactly. So, hope you enjoyed the day off yesterday.
I did.
You do anything fun?
Yeah, I went out and had some fun with my friends, went and played some pool, drank a few beers, and had fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I like to do that once in a while, at least once a week.
Yeah, I try, like at least once a month or once a quarter. Once a quarter is more like it. But
yeah, poor thing.
This is Before the First Cup Icy Edition.
There you go. With icing on top.
Yes, with Jules and Zorie.
I
cannot believe there's snow on the ground.
I think it's kind of neat. I miss the snow. I mean, we used to get quite a bit of snow and just don't get it anymore.
Well, the grass is always greener, honey. Trust me, I don't think those words have ever been uttered out of my mouth. I've lived here since I was 2. I miss the snow has never, except for just now, has never come out of my mouth.
That's true. I was raised in Big Bear, and the elevation was 9,000. We had snow every year. I still love it. I don't know. The first snow is exciting. Everyone gets on their warm stuff and runs outside, and I don't know, just has a good time.
It makes me comatose, actually. I mean, the last couple days, I have had difficulty after dinner. I mean, normally I'll close my eyes for like an hour after dinner, but I haven't been able to get up. I've slept straight through from after dinner until 8 a.m. the next morning. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, in the winter, when the weather changes like that and gets cold, you're so comfortable and warm inside, sleeping. Where in summer, you're hot and irritable, and so you want to get out of bed.
Right, and in summer, I have so much energy, and that's exactly it. I get nasty when I'm hot and sweaty.
I know.
Humid.
Sleep in warm houses. Oh.
No, my room has to be as cold can get. Whatever the air conditioner can do. Yeah, exactly. Tons of blankets and as cold as the air conditioner can get. So it's nice, fresh, and crispy on your face, and you're all snuggly warm. Yeah. I cannot sleep if I'm hot and sweaty and dead air, and it's like just
I can't sleep with my head under the covers either. I need that fresh air, cool, fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I would be leery living in New York right now anyway. Remember that cannibal cop that had fantasies about
I do.
Yeah, he got released.
Oh, really?
Nope, I'm not kidding. New York cop, cannibal cop, sentenced to time served, released from jail.
You're kidding me.
No, I am not.
So they didn't put him through like a psych eval that said, wow, this dude's probably going to end up... Actually, wasn't there a story just like that recently where they found some dude... If you're going to do a story, let me see if I can find on my WTF page. They found some dude in a hotel room, and he was eating the chick's face. She was dead already. No, it was disgusting. Sorry if anyone's eating breakfast. I should have probably warned you. But go ahead. Talk about the cannibal cop. I'm going to see if I can find that other one.
Okay. A former New York City police officer convicted of planning to kidnap and rape women before killing and eating them was sentenced to time served on Wednesday, as he insisted in court that the women were never in danger. Gilberto Valley, now known as the Cannibal Cop, was convicted in 2013 for kidnapping conspiracy. Though he faced a possible life term, a federal judge threw out a jury's guilty verdict earlier this year. Given Valley's steps were not sufficient standing alone to make out the elements of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. On Wednesday, Valley 30 was sentenced to 1 year time served and maximum for a misdemeanor and 1 year probation. He also was ordered to continue mental health treatment. Valley had already served 20 months in jail as he awaited trial. During his sentencing in a Manhattan court, Valley apologized to the woman who had to testify in the trial. He said his conversations in online fetish chat rooms were only role-playing fantasies and not about taking concrete steps to kidnap or harm anyone. I just hope they know they were never in danger, Valley said, according to the AP. I would never do things that I talked about on the internet. Never. Valley said later outside the courtroom that he wanted to move on with his life. My legacy is not going to be the story of a cannibal cop, he said. You know, the findings included a series of unsettling documents and statements, including one file titled Abducting and Cooking, Victim 1, a blueprint. Inside were details regarding the birthday and bra size of a woman and a list of materials needed to carry out the kidnapping plot. I was thinking of tying her body onto some kind of apparatus, cook her over low heat, keep her alive as long as possible, the document according to the court papers. And they don't think this man is a danger to society.
Oh, I know. And you know, I mean, it's one thing for role playing and it's another thing for something to actually happen. I mean, we've talked many times about like people who've been online talking about going to the Middle East, let's say, to go fight for ISIS, and they arrest them before they even got onto a plane. I'm like, how can you arrest someone for something that they haven't done yet? But on the other hand, when you look at, and we've talked many times about video games and, you know, the shoot 'em up first persons or whatever, yeah, that's all role play. But there is this blurred line at times between fantasy and reality. And there are a lot of these people that have these fantasies that if the first chance they had, they would make it a reality.
Right, and they say he didn't do anything in real life to, you know, go towards it, but he researched online how to use chloroform to knock somebody out. I mean, he actually did this. For him to say, oh, it's just role play, I don't care. I don't think anyone with this kind of mind should be out there where I am.
Well, and here's the thing. He was a cop.
Yeah, there's
somebody who was supposed to be protecting the public.
Right. And he used the police database to look up women's real name, real life people. So how can he say they were never in any danger? This judge, if that guy wasn't a cop, he'd be behind bars. I guarantee it.
Right. Well, so is he, any idea if he's still in the police force, or was he, was let go without pay or with pay on vacation?
Let me see. Although prosecutors originally argued that Valley's access to the New York Police Department database signaled that the former officer was taking steps to carry out his lurid plan. They also claim he had searched the internet in order to learn about using chloroform to knock someone unconscious. Defense attorney said his involvement with a dark fetish website was simply fantasy. When Valley appealed his conviction, again, you know, that blows my mind too, that a judge could throw out a jury's guilty conviction. I didn't think they were allowed to do that.
I don't know.
But
Unless it goes to a higher court, I thought.
Well, this didn't. Earlier up, I don't think you were listening right then, but it says that the judge threw out the jury's guilty verdict and said there wasn't not sufficient standalone to make out the elements of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. So he threw it out. They're guilty. Why did he wait until the jury went in and convicted the man, came out and said guilty, to say there wasn't enough evidence?
Well, I can tell you,
weird.
I know that we read somewhere before one other time in a case where a judge threw out a guilty verdict from the, what do they call them? The group of people?
Jury.
The jury, thank you. And when we looked into it, we discovered that it was a suggestion for the judge. We had questioned that before, that the jury trial, the judge is supposed to go along with it, but he doesn't have to. He can overrule that.
Why have a jury in the first place?
Well, exactly. Hold on.
I had always understood that whatever the jury came out with, that's what the verdict was. A judge could, they're not even supposed to influence the jury before they go into the jury room, but I'd have to look that one up, because I didn't think a judge could just come back and say, I'm throwing out the guilty plea.
Overturning verdicts. In certain situations, a judge can overrule or change the guilty verdict that a jury has decided on. Typically, this is called either a judgment of acquittal or a judgment notwithstanding the verdict. So I guess.
Well, then why even have a jury?
Right. What kind of, you want to have a jury trial with your peers, and then the judge can just decide.
No.
I didn't agree with that one.
Wow, that blows my mind. I'm
trying to find a little more detail on that, like what circumstances allow that to happen, because that is pretty crazy. If you think that you're going to get because there are things that you have to do to get a jury trial, right? You have a choice to either get a jury trial or just to go see the judge. And typically you're going to be screwed if you just go see the judge, because you don't really have a group of your quote unquote peers listening to your evidence. It's one guy who could be very swayed, who could be paid off. You don't know,
Mm-hmm. Yep, and and then, even today, you don't have a jury of your peers anyway. It's usually the people sitting on that jury are usually retired people that have the time and kicking back and already pretty much set in their ways.
Here, let me read. Judge's decision. This is on a law site I found.
Okay.
Mitnick Law. Judge's decision. Although the judge has the power to overturn a guilty verdict by the jury, this power is not completely discretionary on the part of the judge. This prevents a judge from overturning a verdict simply based off of feelings or emotions. In order to overturn the verdict, the judge must look at all of the evidence presented in the light most favorable to the prosecution. If this evidence fails to clearly establish guilt, the judge must and will grant the judgment to overturn the verdict. So he apparently did not find enough proof of guilt.
Even though the guy was looking up women's names through their database and was researching how to knock somebody out with chloroform, and wasn't he another person involved where he talked to this other person and was going to kidnap a woman for this other person, if I remember right, during the trial?
I don't know. I don't remember that trial. I remember the story, but I don't remember the trial.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that he conspired with someone else, but I guess they're saying that was all just a fantasy role play too. I don't know.
Hey, wouldn't you call that stalking, if nothing else? I know there's stalking laws.
But
looking up people in a database and then researching on how. I mean, isn't that how the father who left the kid in the hot car? Isn't that how they busted him? Is because he'd been online looking up how long it takes to asphyxiate in a hot car?
Well, okay, look, at the bottom, I just came across this part, and the judge heard this too. for planned kidnappings passed without comment, without discussion, without explanation, and with no follow-up. The only plausible explanation for the lack of comment on inquiry about allegedly agreed upon and scheduled kidnappings is that Valley and the others engaged in these chats understood that no kidnapping would actually take place.
Oh.
Wow. They actually set dates to do this, and they say that they're what? Man, you talk to someone in conspiracy, all it needs, there's many people in prison right now just for talking about making a drug deal.
Yes.
It's conspiracy. So how can these people say, oh, it's just a fantasy, when they are he got names from the New York police database, and then they set dates for when they were going to kidnap them, and that isn't conspiracy? Excuse me?
Well, like I said, or just like the kids who decided that they were going to support ISIS and bought tickets and never got on a plane.
Right.
Or we're talking about buying tickets.
Yep. So how can this sicko just, what, because he was a cop at one time? You know, I would be very nervous living in New York City. I would double up on my ammo.
Yeah, your ammo that they track. I don't know if they're actually doing that yet. But,
no,
put your ammo for your publicly registered gun that's been put in the newspaper with a freaking map to your house.
Well, at least that might stop him from coming to your house to chloroform you.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't believe that they only got him up for a misdemeanor.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, that's why they did time served. A year time served and 1 year probation. That's it.
I don't know. That seems kind of messed up to me, especially considering how freaking hair-trigger crazy they are about terrorism and all this other crazy stuff in New York City, that they would let someone like this go free. I mean, maybe they're figuring it'll allow them to get more budget dollars in the future.
I don't know what their logic is, but I think all women in New York City should be especially aware of their surroundings and stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, don't think this dude's the only dude that's having fantasies like that.
No, I'm not.
There's a lot of sick freaking people out there.
But when you read, I want the men discuss cooking her basin olive oil over an open fire and using her severed head for a centerpiece for a sit-down meal. God.
You know, actually, I'll tell you what. Since the beheadings started happening, and I mean, they've been happening for a long time, but at least since they've been publicized, and we haven't seen any really in the last few months out of ISIS, but we had a string of 3 or 4 there, right? And then I started noticing that all of a sudden there were beheadings in the United States. Remember that?
Right, yep. Oklahoma, I think it was.
Oklahoma, yeah, and actually I've posted a few stories now. I don't remember where the other ones were, but there have been a few here. You know, I've talked about the whole cannibalism aspect in the past, about how even before all this happened, you started seeing like stories about them. And on my WTF page, that's where I would post anything like that. And there were stories about, oh, what does human meat taste like? And all these really like sick, like, first of all, who gives a shit? But second of all, why would you even be like thinking about that? You know,
why would that even enter your mind?
Right. But then when you start thinking to like the bigger picture and the Hunger Games and, you know, just all the stuff, it's almost like another one of those things that they're trying to put into your psyche to normalize. You know, things that as they put it out there, the more you hear about it, the less shocking it becomes. Right?
Yeah, because remember when Dahmer, was that his name?
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah. When we first heard that, everybody was just appalled and disgusted, but they forgot about it in a few days and went on to the next horrifying story. Mm-hmm. And then you hear more and more, And
horrifying stories seem to be the norm now. Mm-hmm. There was this story that I was saying I posted the other day. Is this in England or is this in Australia? I think it is in England. Welsh. What's a Welshman? In South Wales. That must be in England, because I know there's a New South Wales in Australia, but I think this is in England. Welsh man eating face eyeball of woman, hotel room gore details emerge. I mean, this is sick. 34-year-old man was found eating half of his 22-year-old female victim's face along with her eyeball that he just gouged out.
Oh, God.
This is freaking unbelievable. He was found at a South Wales hotel in this full-blown cannibal mode when police used a taser to back him off the victim. Both the victim and his victim died on the spot. They were both pronounced dead moments after the attack occurred. The victim died from the horrific wounds. Police were able to handcuff Williams, which was the cannibal, but then he became unresponsive and was also pronounced dead at the scene. And this was a scene like something out of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, my God.
And what would put someone in that frame of mind? And is it mental illness? Is it stuff that's, I mean, are people getting whacked out because of what they're seeing? Are people just sick? Are people, like, I don't even know. There would be nothing, and I've talked about this with survival friends of mine. We've talked about cannibalism and about shit goes, like, really bad. Would you or would you not, even if it meant that you would die from starvation? And
right, like
I voted
Donner Party.
Exactly, the Donner Party. Yes. And I'll tell you what, they all know. I'll be eating freaking worms before I'll be eating people. Okay? Yeah. And that's not going to happen. I don't even think I'd be eating worms, but I might have to. But I am not eating people. That's it. There's like a line drawn there, okay?
Yeah. No. And the fact that anyone would want to, there was this one guy, and he I forget what country he was from, but he wrote books and everything, and he just described every person that he killed, how he cut them up and everything. And this man isn't in prison. I forget what country. I read it a couple years back, and just a little guy, and just freaked me out. You know, he kind of wrote a diary of how he was feeling and stuff, and he didn't know why. He was just driven to eat people.
God. So
that's
is
a
it
mental illness?
Mental illness or a genetic defect? Come on.
Yeah, something.
Well, I would think that would be, you know, I mean, I feel compelled to drink a beer sometimes on Fridays, you know, but I can also turn that off.
Right. It's, I don't know, that is really sick. And for them to think that this cannibal cop, is not going to fulfill that fantasy, you got to be a screw loose up top. When they went into such intricate scheduling and plotting this, you know he was going to do it. You know he was.
Yeah. So now he's going to have to move or something to make sure that he can go undetected as he begins his plan again.
Right. You know, he says he wants to move forward. Yeah. I
move forward to another state. Nah.
Yeah. Yep.
So did they acquit him, or what was the end result?
Yeah, he got all the judge gave him was he dropped it to a misdemeanor, and he time served, and he has 1 year probation. That's it.
So I wonder if he could go to another jurisdiction, to another state, and get a job as a cop.
I wouldn't doubt it. They always hire. They don't. I don't know if they either don't check other precincts and stuff before they hire, but I know you can go, being a cop, you can go from one state to another state. If you get fired in one state, you can go to another state.
Well, I know if you get let go from a precinct, I mean, there have been many cases where we've seen cops get hired at other places, especially after, like, oops, we shot, you know, a citizen.
Yeah,
you know, they can go to another police precinct and get a job.
Yeah. So, just
this guy has been found
to job again,
right? And he's been found to have done nothing wrong. So,
right,
that's really sick.
Now, okay, there's such a thing as double jeopardy. Since he was found innocent of all that, if he goes and does it, can he be arrested for it?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
Good.
because this double jeopardy would only be if they tried to charge him on the same crime, which was using, or the crime that wasn't a crime, using the police database to track women in New York City for
So
this
if
instance.
he did that,
No,
he
but
could,
if
I
it
see
was,
what you're saying.
it would be that instance of it. If he did it again, that would be a whole new case. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, this is one instance. If he then got into the database again and got caught again doing it, there would be a whole new instance of this that would not be considered double jeopardy. Might be the same crime, but the same type of crime, but not the same crime. If that
Okay.
makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's not like if you murder someone and then they end up being alive, you couldn't get convicted if you walked up and murdered them because you had already been convicted of murdering them. I mean, found innocent of it, right?
No, I don't know about that.
Wait, if you got found guilty of murdering someone, but then it came up that they were alive, if you killed them then, they couldn't try you because you'd already been found guilty of killing that person. That's what's called double jeopardy.
Well, right, because you already
yeah.
been convicted of murder, so they can't convict you
him,
of murder
of that
on the same
person,
person
right.
again. That person can only be
Right.
dead once, and whoops,
Yeah.
they made a mistake. But
You could, I mean, it's been said you could walk right up in front of a full courtroom and kill that person, and they couldn't try you for it because they had already found you guilty.
right, but you'd probably be in jail already. So
Yeah, or else
it's hard
shot.
to do that.
Well, I don't know. You only get about 5 years for murder now. You get more for a drug conviction than you do for murder. 5 years is about the average for murder.
That's crazy. I know. I don't remember what the story was, but I saw a story the other day where somebody had been in jail for murder and they were already up for parole. I was like, what? How could you possibly be up for parole? And the guy had made some comment about, gee, I probably should have done this a long time ago or whatever. I was like, all right, this is not cool. So we just let these people out again?
And we keep, well, you know, the mindset behind that. You release the violent upon society, and you keep the nonviolent to work in your factories in the prison industry.
Right, because there's so much wonderful profit in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, you know, and it was just said not too long ago that they released a bunch of rapists and violent criminals from that were immigrants. They released them. I forget how many, but there was quite a few that they just released from, prison.
Wow.
Yeah. Even here in California, when they said to lower the prison, population, they released at one point, oh God, I wish I could remember the exact number, but like a couple of thousand murders, rapists, violent criminals. They released them into the public again to make room in the prisons, but all the nonviolent prisoners stayed. And it's crazy. It's insanity, and it's all for profit, all for money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go there because I'll get all upset, and I'm already shaking.
Yeah, let's not. I don't have any stories, and I wasn't planning on. I have nothing prepared to talk about any of that today.
Okay, well, I have a good one here.
Okay.
If you can believe it. Cops stand up to department corruption, tired of being forced to make arrests and write tickets. Normal, Illinois. A group of police officers filed a lawsuit against the town of Normal last week, alleging that the police department is forcing them to write a certain number of tickets or face disciplinary action. Patrol officers Brian Larrymore and Deborah Weir and Todd Van Hoven were tired of being forced to collect a minimum amount of revenue each month or face disciplinary consequences. They claim the department is abusing its power and have filed a 27-page lawsuit detailing these allegations. The lawsuit states that each officer had to write at least one ticket per each day. They had to write 4 ordinance violation tickets per month and make 1 DUI arrest every other month. More than just traffic citations, the lawsuit details the requirements to make at least 2 criminal arrests per month. That means that these officers were forced to create criminals out of otherwise innocent people or face disciplinary action. The lawsuit goes on to say that day shift patrol officers have no concrete requirements when it comes to criminal arrest or DUI arrest. Those day shift officers are alleged. Okay, I just lost the page. Wait, let me see if I can bring it back up. Okay, there I did. The lawsuit goes on to say day shift patrol officers have no concrete requirements when it comes to criminal arrest or DUI arrest. Those day shift officers are allegedly told to have a minimum number of traffic arrests and ordinance violation arrests. According to WMBD, Larry Moore, Weir, and Van Hoven all cited separate incidents where they were disciplined for failing to meet the required number of arrests. The claims date back to 2010. Deborah Weir said she was even suspended for a day without pay for falling short of her alleged quota. The group of officers are claiming that these requirements encourage them to make arrests without probable cause. By refusing to make the arrest and therefore being disciplined, the lawsuit claims Normal Police Department is in violation of Section 20 of the Illinois Whistleblower Act. While city officials haven't made a comment in response to a lawsuit yet, WMBD did contact Chief Rick Bichner, who denied there being a quota system in place, but did say that they have expectations for their employees. Same difference. So anyways, good for these cops standing up and saying, hey, enough, that's not why I joined the force.
Well, that's good. Where's that? Illinois, you said?
Illinois, yeah, Normal, Illinois. Good for those guys. You know, I mean...
Well, we know they all have quotas. I mean, it's not a surprise. You know that at the end of the month, you better make sure if you're doing a trip, you keep it on cruise control.
But the surprise is police, you know, saying, enough. I've had enough. This isn't why I joined the force, you know.
Well, because it's like, have you ever been in sales?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so if you've been in sales and you've had a quota, you'll know how much that sucks.
It does.
Big time.
But this is involving people's lives.
Well, right, but still, it's a quota. So anyone who has a quota, that sucks.
Well, police aren't not supposed to have a quota, you know.
Right, but we know they do.
Yeah.
And they probably get bonuses after you get over a certain amount, you know.
Mm-hmm. But like that one officer said, she got a day without pay suspended for not meeting her quota.
Well, there you go.
So, you know, she must have let somebody go that was innocent. Oh, my God. Put her behind bars. You know, it's just disgusting. But I say yay for these officers. You know, I mean, it's really a shock to have from within, you know, officer opening their mouth to something like this.
Most of the time when you do that, you end up in a mental institution. Remember that story out in New York?
Yeah. Or if you need your back, someone to get your back, there ain't going to be nobody there.
Right.
Yeah. And that
you
could
get blacklisted.
Yeah. But I just say 3 cheers. I mean, there are a few good cops still out there. I mean, I am always, you know, saying how corrupt they are, and most of them are, but when I see some that are standing up, I kudos to them.
Well, that's good.
Yep. Yeah. Now. Oh, have you seen how they're working up this Ferguson, you know, whatever comes out guilty or innocent. In St. Louis, the schools and townships are warning residents to stock up on water, food, medicine before the Brown decision. Mm-hmm. And I've been seeing little things all through the, you know, news about how they're, you know, they want to riot there. And
well, you know, regardless, I'm going to tell you what, I don't think there's anything that they can do to stop this. I mean, the people are pretty pissed off. There have been a lot of I don't know if you'd call them provocateurs, but you've had the media in there that's been kind of stoking the fire.
That's what I'm saying. You know, they're kind of, you know, like they're building up to it. And telling people, oh, get food, water, medicine, get everything. It's going to be, hell on earth, and then they're building this momentum that I don't think would otherwise happen.
Well, I mean, from what we've seen already, and we followed that pretty closely when the Ferguson riots first happened. From what you've seen already, and I even did a story on the killing when it first happened as well. But if this guy comes back with a not guilty verdict, and I'm going to say that the majority of people would disagree with a not guilty verdict, but if it comes back with a not guilty verdict, and we've seen stranger things happen. What else do you think the end result is going to be?
Right.
And so if you're one of the other residents that aren't involved in this, wouldn't you want to make sure that those residents are prepared? Because you're going to have like a humanitarian crisis on your hands. Like,
right.
In Missouri, not in Syria.
And now it's a grand jury. All the grand jury does is they don't say if they're guilty or innocent. They decide whether it's going to go to trial or not, whether the guy's going to be, charged is what's going to, but, this isn't even really the trial. This is all about if that cop is going to be charged or not. And so, if he's found guilty enough to stand trial. But this is crazy. I mean, and then, remember, they were attacking nonviolent protesters with, their sound machine and, all the riot gear. That right there, gets a lot of people pissed off enough to go out there.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm glad I don't live there.
Yeah, me too.
Because, and all that stink, because of what happened in Ferguson, like Davis here in California, they ordered their police department to get rid of all their military equipment. And they said, this isn't a request. We demand it. And I hear other cities said the same, and now they're trying to get rid of it. But here they're going to say, but we need it in case something like this happens here.
Well,
so
and that's kind of
another angle.
That's kind of the big thing. I mean, they're rolling out all the stops. They're rolling out all of their militarized gear. They're getting ready to call on martial law and to call out the National Guard. I mean, you better believe that, though no one wants to see this happen, you better believe that somewhere along the food chain, they're probably salivating, just like we had in Boston. You know what I mean?
This is a test. This is only a test. Yep, it is. It's just like Waco was a test, and, all of these.
And this one is even double duty because it's stoking the race card. You know what I mean? Which is another great way to divide everyone. So, this is just like a cherry on top.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's, I fear for the people that are there, that do go out, the ones that want to protest nonviolent. I think nonviolent with a gun in my belt, because I have a feeling they're going to shoot people this time, and it's not going to be just with that sound blaster thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be pretty, that's for sure. And I know that there are some in the alternative media that are planning on going there.
I know.
That's, and I'd be scared.
They're amping up these cops. You know how they get their adrenaline going, and they're all, and then they go. And this is like a license to do whatever the hell you want, because, they're in the wrong, and we have to be protecting the innocent. It's not going to be pretty. Yeah, I wouldn't want to cover this story unless it was from a helicopter way high up, because it's not going to be.
Or a drone.
Yeah, yeah.
Artificial intelligence drone.
You've seen the clip where they fired on news people. What is that? I can't remember which one. But they got it on video where they knew they were the press. They said they were the press, and they fired on them anyway.
Yeah, that's happened quite a bit lately, actually.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. In fact, that's the one they want to take out first. I don't know. It's not going to be pretty, and I feel for the innocents that, and that they're just doing a test. Only this time it's out in the open instead of in some school hidden away where nobody can see. They want it right out there in the open so they can blame the protesters. They're all terrorists. You know that.
Well, and see, that's going to set a precedence too. Already. Anyone who protests, we know we already have the 230-point facial recognition that's going to be happening. Even from the very first Occupy in New York City, we discovered that they were filming everybody's faces there. But there hasn't really been like a big outbreak of violence until the Ferguson.
Right.
You had the one that was up
the
at...
First night. The first night was vandals and stuff, but you know what? A lot of them were from out of town. The majority of the protesters in Ferguson were nonviolent. After that first night, yeah. So, but I don't know about this time.
Yep.
So I don't know. And then I can imagine how the mainstream media is going to cover it. Of course, they will only get there's shots that make it look like it's all on the protesters.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you don't even know like who the protesters really are.
Mm-hmm. Right. You don't. They don't name them off or anything. It's just, I don't know. It's going to be ugly no matter what happens there. Even if it was nonviolent, they're going to make it look ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, what?
I froze up again. Dang! Flash and just updated it again without my permission, and now every time I open more than one window, it freezes up.
Oh, yeah, Flash just messed up.
There it goes again. Stop script. Okay.
I saw the other day, this is, so we're going to totally change direction now.
Okay.
Though, actually, here, what we can do before we do that is there are a couple of videos on Ferguson. Here, let's listen to this.
Okay.
If it plays. It might, though.
Now to a city waiting and now preparing for what could come, Ferguson, Missouri. A grand jury yet to decide whether the police officer who shot Michael Brown, an unarmed black teenager, will be charged in his death. Tonight, businesses there boarded up, yet with the spray-painted message, "We are open." They are simply bracing themselves in the meantime. And tonight, word of gun sales on the rise in that city. ABC's Steve Osensami is there.
Today, grand jurors are still hotly debating possible charges against Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. And for the first time, hearing from this man, the medical examiner hired by Michael Brown's family. What Dr. Michael Bodden shared is private, but in his autopsy from August, he concluded that the white police officer shot and killed the unarmed black teenager from a distance.
There weren't signs of a struggle.
That's key because the county's autopsy suggests that some of the gunfire was at close range and even inside this police SUV, supporting police accounts that Brown fought with Officer Wilson in his patrol car and went for the officer's gun. Businesses across Ferguson are preparing for the worst, worried that if the grand jury fails to indict the police officer, the city might burn. We went to a firing range and gun store where, thanks to frightened families, they say sales are up 300%. The most popular gun, this 9mm Smith & Wesson.
How many of these would you say you sold in the last few weeks?
In the last few weeks, I would say probably 250 of them.
The black state highway patrolman who's been trying to put a different face on police efforts here, hoping for peaceful protest.
We're going to ensure that this community remains whole.
More than 1,000 police are on standby, with more than $120,000 worth of new riot gear and rubber bullets.
Oh.
The grand jury here holding its secret proceedings at this county courthouse could come down with its decision within the next few weeks or the next several days. David?
So there you go. They had over, I don't remember what they just say. How much in new gear?
200, what? The police or the
Yeah,
citizen?
the police.
I didn't I didn't catch that. I caught the 250 guns sold, though.
Yeah, I posted a story about that the other day, and all I kept thinking was, wow, so as they're making that news that gun sales have been surging in Ferguson, are they going to use this whole event for multi-pronged attacks
There
on the
you go.
people, right?
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? Rubber bullets can kill, too.
Mm-hmm. So can those canisters, we
Yep.
remember back in the one that was at the college in California, which was that one? The one where the Occupy, where the kid got hit in the head with the canister.
Right. That was in New York, wasn't it?
No, that was in
LA.
California.
Okay, it was in LA. Yeah, yeah, and he got, well, I think he came out okay, but they were
he's got
afraid-
brain damage.
Oh, did he?
And there was a whole settlement, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And he wasn't doing anything. And he was a bystander, more or less, not aggressive.
He was a veteran. He was
he
was a vet
veteran.
who had come back. And, yeah, I mean...
They're pumping this up big time.
I think that this is going to be used to try and clamp down more. I mean, they've been amping it, and the fact that the media is all over it, but they're all over stuff like this, but they're completely ignoring some really important things to the entire nation. And I'm not saying that this isn't important, because police brutality, I saw, actually, let me see if I can find that clip. There was a story that came out last night that I saw was uploaded about the UN now raising an eyebrow over the police brutality in the United States.
But, on December 24th, the Small Arms Treaty is supposed to take effect.
Yeah, now, did they ink that? I mean, that's been going on for a couple years in
Obama
New York.
gave Kerry the permission to sign the treaty, and they're saying it's binding, and it goes into effect December 24th here.
He gave. So do you have that somewhere?
Yeah, I'll bring it up while you go for what you were going to go for, because it was day before yesterday. So let me go grab it.
Okay, yeah, I got to find that UN. I saw it this morning when I was scrolling the videos, and I just thought it was interesting that we had the UN, and whatever happened where the UN came in about the water in Detroit.
Did they ever really come in, though? I don't know.
I thought they did. I thought they at least made a statement. A lot of people had bitched about it, but then you didn't hear anything more, right?
Right. Like, no follow-through. I never seen that they did. I seen that the water company started working with the people and making arrangements and stuff for the ones who really couldn't pay. But I don't remember the UN actually doing what they said they were going to do.
I mean, here's the flip side to that. The flip side to that is a lot of these people, from what I understood, hadn't paid their bills in years.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not that you want anyone to go without, but if you haven't paid your bill in years, I don't really think you have too much of a leg to stand on if they all of a sudden decide to turn off your services, right?
Right. I mean, they're lucky they went that long. I go a month without, and I would have my service off.
I mean, you would think that if you didn't have the money to pay your bill, you would try to negotiate. You'd get on a payment plan. You'd get on something. And I understand, water is considered a human right, but... you also have Lake Michigan. I don't know what to say. I mean, if I don't pay my bills for years, they're going to turn off my services too. And that isn't going to be a story for me to be contacting the UN. That's going to be, go get some social services or something, try and get some help. But the fact that the UN was getting involved in that was really kind of bizarro to me.
Yeah. Okay, I found that article now.
All right.
UN Arms Treaty goes into effect December 24th. The United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs has announced that the Arms Trade Treaty, which regulates the international trade in conventional arms, including small arms, to battle tanks and combat aircraft, to warships, will officially go into effect December 24th. Now, I read a lot of this. I haven't read it all, but I would think that our government would not sign on to this, because this would mean we couldn't arm the people over in Syria and Iraq. This is against international arms selling. So
Right, but it's small arms.
Well,
so we could probably give them rocket launchers.
No, it also covers small arms, battle tanks, combat aircraft, warships. It includes all of that.
Oh, well, then that's why they have to steal them when we give them to the Iraqis. You know, we give them to the Iraqis as the U.S. troops are on the ground, right? And we're going to help support them. And then ISIS comes in and, quote-unquote, steals them.
Steals them, right. But, yeah, it goes into effect the 24th, and I've seen that across all the news things. But what I don't understand is, okay, no one, not even the president, can enter us into a treaty without going through Congress. They have to get Senate approval on any treaty, or it's not binding. And in the Small Arms Trade Treaty, it says that, like the United States would not have changed any of our existing laws. It only covers when it's shipped internationally. Now, how much of this they're going to change around, I don't know. But from what I really read of it, it shouldn't affect, like, our personal gun owning stuff. But I think our government will spin it and, you know, go that way. But this treaty is mainly for international and for countries not to be able arming these other countries. So I would think that we would be against it because that's where this country's making all their money.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know. But I think a lot of people are throwing it out of proportion when you read the actual treaty. But I'm so shocked that they wanted to sign it because we know, I mean, you know, we've got boots on the ground and we know that everyone knows that we've been providing arms. So why wouldn't all these, you know, manufacturing of all these weapons be against it?
Well, they were all opposing it. At the time, I mean, this was back in 2013.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah. But anyway, it goes into effect December 24th. And, like, a lot of countries signed up for it. Now, China and Russia didn't. There's a list of what countries signed on and what countries didn't. And let me see if I can find it, if it has it here in this article. But we were reading off some of them. No, this one doesn't, but I can go back and I'll find one. And the list, it's pretty big. It's pretty long, but Russia and China aren't in it. Japan was there. Let me see the list. Goes into effect. Okay.
Well, you know what? I see a story, October 18th, 2013. Good news from Washington. UN Arms Trade Treaty, DOA, and U.S. Senate. So, I mean, did it really go through? Because, I mean, it did have to go through for to be signed in Congress.
Right, and they did vote it down. But then something happened after that because they didn't sign on until, let me see. It says when the United States signed on. I'm looking for the article here. Here's a brief schedule. I know I have to put this in here. Because we are in the list that have signed on to it. And plus, I remember Obama gave Kerry the authority to sign for us, which I think is
You sure he didn't do an executive order?
I know, I'd be shocked if he did. Okay. Okay, list of countries signed on Small Arms Treaty. Okay. Because we were reading the list. And, well, the ones that you would think signed on, okay. State. Oh, yeah, and you know what's weird? I've been noticing a few things here that Asia, they aren't getting chemtrails. No, chemtrails aren't going over countries in Asia. Let's see. Okay, okay, here it is, I think.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, that one doesn't either. I
Okay.
can't find that.
Here,
list.
it says a little over a year ago, Secretary of State John Kerry signed the United Nations Small Arms Treaty. Fortunately for the U.S., the Senate had already taken a position on the treaty and deemed it unconstitutional and unworthy of recognition as a violation of the Second Amendment. However, that isn't stopping the UN treaty from advancing forward in the eyes of the world on December 24, 2014. According to the United Nations Office for Disarmament, and I have been to that website before, quote, the Landmark Arms Trade Treaty, which is abbreviated ATT, regulating the international trade in conventional arms from small arms to battle tanks, combat aircraft, and warships, will enter into force on December 24, 2014. The New American's Joel Wolverton writes, quote, it is ironical. Is that a word? Ironical. I would have to say the word should be ironic. That on a day before the world's 2.18 billion Christians commemorate the coming of Christmas, the United Nations will officially put into motion a play to deny them of the right to give, right given to them by the very God whose birth they celebrate. Oh, please.
I know.
Oh, my God. Whack jobberoonies. While the UN disarmament site claims that the United States has ratified the treaty as of September 25th, 2013, nothing could be further from the truth. While Kerry may have signed the document, the United States is required to ratify it by 2/3, and they have not done so. The Constitution is the fundamental law in the United States, not a treaty of the United Nations. Therefore, the rules are in place in the U.S. Constitution that keep the UN Small Arms Treaty from becoming law, even if the Senate were to ratify it, namely the Second Amendment. Now, I know back a few years ago this was a big concern. The fact that it has not been ratified by the House or the Senate is a big deal. And I'll tell you what, though, remember, right after the elections, Barry came out and said that now we had Republicans in the House and the Senate ruling the House and the Senate, so he was going to be more free with his executive order pen. And I just saw the other day that we are now to expect his immigration act that he's going to put through hell or high water over the next few days as well. So, you know what? We got until December 24th. I wonder if he's going to ink an executive order. And I wonder if does an executive order, does anyone in chat know, does an executive order trump, is it the ace of spades to the Constitution?
Okay, an executive order is not a law, for one thing. Unless if you go into martial law or national emergency, then they become laws. But before that, they are suggestions, like for his cabinet.
Well, as we have Ferguson on covered in Tinder and someone ready to drop a match. I just saw, we talked yesterday about how Ebola just evaporated from the news.
Right.
After supposedly the press was told to shh. And I saw last night there was a new video uploaded. We're bringing another Ebola patient to the U.S. Time to ramp that shit up again.
But they can't let it die completely unless in case they need it.
Right, in case we need it next week for top news stories because it was a slow week this week. So, when you look at all that and you look at the potentiality of some big things that could come out of A, Ferguson, and B, Ebola as far as martial law, and then you look that this small arms treaty deadline, right, to go into effect is December 24th, could happen.
Oh, okay, they've signed it, but they haven't ratified it yet. It hasn't.
Right, they signed it, but they haven't ratified it. But they couldn't even ratify it because it goes against the Constitution. But what I'm saying is, if Obama signed an executive order and you said that nothing becomes law unless we're in a state of emergency, well, we got a couple things percolating that Ebola, most certainly could be. Yeah,
that's true.
Right in the nice Q4 time frame. Now, what I think that they might be able to use Ferguson and all these extra gun sales and stuff to maybe make some changes at a domestic level. They don't really want the UN involved, but they want to do their international trade because that's where they're all becoming billionaires or millionaires, right?
Yep.
That's one of their big cash cows. But here in this country, they most certainly want to create, gun registrations and mental health checks and all this other crap.
Right, but that's not what the UN, what this treaty has
I know
in
that.
it. Yeah.
I know that. But I'm saying
trying...
I've been involved with this treaty for about 5 years now, following it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that people who are Second Amendment lovers in this country worry about is that this is a stepping stone to then applying laws that could remove our rights under the Constitution. So even though that this isn't directly pointing at removing our guns, it definitely is a step to putting us under this global umbrella where they've disarmed all these other countries already.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And it goes on here. It says, never mind. It just froze up again. It took me off the page. Yeah, but, and a lot, this is how they're making all this money. Why would they want to even, because it only relates to selling arms, or like you said, we send all our guys the boots on the ground and everything, then we're helping them. So, of course, we're supplying them with guns, and then the ISIS comes and steals it. So we didn't give them guns.
Right.
Directly.
They took them.
Yeah. This is so nuts. Yeah, they will definitely use it for, and Russia and China did not sign into this. There was I forget how many that did not sign up, but, Russia's going, hell no, we're still going to make money by selling arms. And China too. Russia
and China make a lot of money, and I saw that China just released their first drone.
Yeah, I've seen that. China, where all of our attention's on Ferguson and Ebola, and none being paid to China and Russia.
Well, I am, but
most
people aren't.
Right. The mainstream is direct, and what is it when all the news is about the same couple things? They're always misdirecting us, and you need to look around. Mm-hmm. And remember, China still needs women.
Well, see, there were a couple things going on in China this week. Obama and Putin were there. Did you see them? And they
did not
look too friendly.
Ooh, they were not friendly at all.
And they were having that whole economic summit, APEC, I think it was called.
And what's sad is Putin always makes Obama look like such a wuss, and which he is, but Putin seems to really bring it out in him.
Well, I actually was talking about that with a friend the other day. He made some comment about the Putin lovers in this country, and I said, but the thing is like, it's this mental thing. It's this image of a shirtless Putin wrestling a tiger or whatever versus Obama snapping and popping his gun as he's meeting with the head of China. He looks like a freaking idiot. So, you can't necessarily blame Putin for that.
Well, right, or, it shows Obama with his golf club, and next to him. And he seems to, I don't know, he's just rude, and it's pointed out, and then when that open mic thing happened when he was, saying things about Putin, that didn't go over so well. So, yeah. He's made a fool of us since the beginning. Remember when he bowed to the Queen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that started it. And that's when people were going, oh, shit.
At least he didn't puke in someone's lap. Yeah. I think that wasn't that the Japanese prime minister? I don't remember who it was. It was Bush.
Yeah, I don't remember who. I remember him throwing up, and I think it was Bush Sr., wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was.
I thought it was Junior.
Maybe
Senior had too much class for that.
Yeah.
It was Junior. He probably had been out drinking the night before.
Yeah, oh boy. Yeah. So what came of that meeting there? Do you have it?
What meeting?
Over there with
one in China. I don't know what the end result was, but here, we'll listen to this. Maybe. 25 seconds worth. Come on!
USA Today looks at a flap over presidential gum chewing. Chinese people watching the coverage of the Beijing Economic Summit went online to criticize President Obama. It appeared that he was chewing gum as he walked with his Chinese counterpart. Some people in China say they saw that as a rude thing. The president is known to use Nicorette to help control the urge to smoke. We don't know if that was the case here, but there was some criticism about gum chewing.
So that's the big report of this whole thing, is gum chewing.
Yeah. Yes, and he's munching his Nicorette. How about slap a patch on?
Right. I don't believe it was Nicorette. I think that's him showing disrespect for these leaders, and they're reading it like that, too.
Yeah, I wonder if he was popping it, too.
Oh, shit.
Snap, snap, snap.
I wouldn't doubt it. It's like, I don't find this important. You guys don't mean nothing, but I'm here just because I gotta be.
Yeah,
like
and there was
kid. Go ahead.
There was there was a story too about this from a few days ago that actually he was doing like a hit and run in China. He then was heading over to Australia and a few other countries, traveling this huge number of miles over like 7 days in meetings.
And do we know what these meetings are?
No, I haven't seen anything about what the meetings are about. No. One of the interesting things, I dug into that APEC summit in China, and I saw that they had at the bottom of the page all the sponsors. Hold on, let this load. There were platinum, gold, and then media sponsors. And some of the platinum sponsors were Abbott, which is the drug company, Abbott. Caterpillar, which of course is the construction company, Chevron, Dow.
Oh, wow.
Lilly, which that's another drug company, Johnson & Johnson, Merck.
All the ones that are running this country.
Microsoft, Walmart, UPS, Lenovo. I mean, I was like, wow, they're all sponsoring this Chinese conference? That was pretty surprising to me.
Not really, though, because don't they use Chinese labor for most of their products?
I don't know. I don't see GE either. GE's not listed. You'd think they would be, but...
Well, but it's all corporate sponsors.
It's all corporate sponsors, yes.
Huh. I wonder if all the summits are corporate sponsored. I never looked into who sponsored them.
I've never seen corporate sponsorship on a government meeting. No, not in all the years that I've looked. I mean, this is like when I worked in technology, we would have these events and we would invite a lot of our customers, and a lot of the big boys that we sold would give us dollars to pay for things. So we could buy banners, and it would be like a co-branded banner. It would be a banner that had a logo for our company and a logo for theirs, because we had techs and salespeople all certified in their products, and we were, a gold reseller or whatever. And so we would get corporate sponsorship from all these different companies to help fund the event. And, let's say Cisco will sponsor the lunch. So we would, get all the catering done, and then we'd give the bill to Cisco. That's how it worked. But I've never seen it in a government thing like this, only in private entities. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it happens, but that's the first time that I ever went to some sort of international meeting page, and at the very bottom saw corporate platinum sponsorship. That's messed up.
That's way messed up, because that means the corporations are running the show.
Yeah. Or at least have a very strong interest.
Influence. Yeah, strong influence on what occurs there. Wow. That's amazing.
One of the big things that happened out of this is that Japan and China have been on the outs for a long time, and there's a real long historical story behind that I'm not going to get into right now, but I guess I don't know if it was actually a war or if it was some sort of incursion, but they've hated each other for a long time, okay? And there were icebreaker talks. Let me see, the 10th is when I posted the news. That was 4 days ago, right before the APEC summit, and then Japan actually went to the summit. So that was kind of interesting as you watch that, like, Japan was demilitarized, and now over the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 months, you're seeing that they're building up their military again, which I thought that was part of the treaty after World War II, that they weren't allowed to have armed services.
Yeah, but I think wasn't there a time limit on that
I have
treaty?
no idea.
I thought there was, but their big thing right now seems to be that island. Who actually owns that island?
China actually created this no-fly zone over an island in this international water. That this is where it's caused some problems. The Chinese jets were buzzing some of our jets, and then we got involved, and that kind of quieted down for a while. I haven't really heard much about that. One of the things that's going on right now, though, that you're saying, what isn't being paid attention to is the whole Ukrainian-Russian thing is heating up again. I don't know if you've been paying attention to any of that, but they have been dropping tanks and increasing troops all around Ukraine again. And one of the things that tells me that there really is something going on, and let me see if I can find it, is, wow, did I have a surprise yesterday when I was going through trying to sort videos, and I see that the top video for Pigmine's channel changed, and there's a new one up there. In a day and a half, it got 74,000 views, and it was Russian paratroopers holding joint drills in Serbia, and I believe, let me just go there.
Whoa.
I thought they were dropping tanks. Hold on. 76,000 views now in a day with 56 likes. I mean, it's huge. See, I don't know if there's even going to be any narration on here.
There's your narrate.
Yeah, I'm going to stop because there really isn't anyone talking, but they're doing these anti-terrorism drills now in Serbia with fully loaded troops and stuff. And what's interesting about this is when we went in to see where all these views came from, every single website that embedded this was Russian.
Whoa.
So this is a big deal in Russia for some reason that we apparently are missing. Yeah, that really surprised me that they were all Russian websites.
Wow, now we got to find out what it is. Because
well, no, you can take a look at all the news. They have been ramping up very quietly over the last couple days. Hold on. Let me hit the Ukraine playlist. I have too many windows open, so everything is really slow. Let's see, the 13th. Yes, NATO was even saying something. NATO says Russian troops and tanks again are near the Ukraine. Russian moves tanks and troops into the Ukraine. NATO commander says Russian troops and tanks have entered eastern Ukraine.
Wow.
So I don't know. Violence in Ukraine as ceasefire collapses.
Again.
Kiev accuses Russia of fresh incursion into the east. Tanks spotted rolling into Ukraine. Now notice nobody's talking about any of this because they're tired of the Ukraine. Right, not over here. But like I said, the fact that we got 76,000 views in a one-day period on them now doing these exercises and paratroopers and shit tells me that, and all the views were from Russia, tells me that it's a pretty big deal.
Right, and not a word over here.
Nope. Nobody here cares. I can post here. Wait a minute. Let me unplug again. I was posting for a while all of the news for the Ukraine. I mean, this thing, we had the protests, and when this whole thing started, I had the playlist. I was posting them all on the UCY Facebook page. And at the very beginning, people were interested, but there's no interest now. If I get one view, maybe I'm lucky.
People are sick of war here. Mm-hmm. They really are. And they keep pushing it, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting. If nothing else.
Well, it'll be interesting to see this whole Syria thing. Where is Syria? Have we? Now, I actually saw something yesterday that I sent to Brandon, and he said he was going to write an article on it, I think. Because, if anyone's been following this, it's been Brandon from, years back already. Hold on, let me scroll up, because I dropped this to him last night. No, not Jibo. And not the machete guy. There was a machete shopkeeper. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't.
Oh, some guy came into a mini mart or whatever with a machete, and the guy behind the counter fought him off with a big freaking metal pole. It was great.
Good for him.
Hold on. Scroll. I know I posted this here yesterday because I was like, holy shit, this is something that we've known was coming for a long time. The U.S. literally came out and said, how can I not find this? Here it is. Here, check this out because this is going to piss Putin right off. Maybe.
Well, Wolf, just 2 months ago, President Obama was slammed for saying he didn't have a strategy yet for Syria. Now the president seeking to review a plan for Syria, including the eventual removal of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The president is...
Bing! Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
The removal of Assad.
Yeah.
Now, wait, that was never part of the plan. And that, in the very beginning, is what started this pissing match between the U.S. and Russia over Syria. Okay?
Wow.
So we freaking start this whole ISIS bullshit to then go, oh, ISIS is in freaking Syria, so now we got to go into Syria. And now all of a sudden, removing Assad is part of the U.S. strategy.
It's going to solve the problem, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you what, all these troops moving in around Ukraine again, I think is directly 100% related to this.
Yep.
All right, let's hear a little more.
Okay.
His advisor is coming to the realization you are not going to defeat ISIS without a plan to get rid of Assad, who the U.S. and many of the allies see as the reason ISIS has been able to gain strength in the country. It's really an admission. The initial strategy to confront ISIS in Iraq first and then take on Syria was a major miscalculation. In just the past week, the National Security Team has met 4 times, including one meeting chaired by the President, Wolf, to discuss how the Syria strategy will fit into the overall strategy of combating ISIS.
So how are the...
I mean, are they full of shit or what? I can't even believe the lies that I am hearing out of this.
There was a journalist that came out and he said every story you hear, maybe 1 out of 50 or 70 is true. Every one of them are false. They lie, and we eat it, gobble it up in this country.
Well, this is absolutely 100% lies. So we're looking at now how our strategy to go into Iraq after ISIS and then into Syria isn't working. And so we got to take out Assad because he's allowing them. No, how about we armed, we trained, and there actually was a whole story just the other day about how ISIS actually came out of all of our prisons.
That's right.
And I mean, we know that. All those prison breaks from the Guantanamo-esque prisons all over the Middle East, that then they did their and ran to Turkey, and where was the other one? Jordan, and we handed them all the weapons that came from Stevens in Libya. And then the CIA trained them all in freaking Turkey, and then patted them on the ass and said, go forward into Syria. Go forward, young man. That was us. So this is just such a crock of shit. Oh, I could not believe when I heard this, and people are just so damn stupid.
They
are. The American public, they're just going to eat it up and go, oh yeah, now Assad's the bad guy. I mean, they tried the last time.
Go get him. Yep.
You know, just like ramping up the drums to go after Saddam Hussein. So I would never forget the day that I am watching the news after 9/11, and they're talking about this, that, and the other thing, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we're going into Iraq after." I'm like, "What does?"
And a lot of people
Hussein
think we went there for 9/11
with the Twin Towers. I mean, my husband and I sat here and watched it, and we both looked at each other. We're like, what? How is Iraq figuring into this? There was no connection. And then they, warped the story to somehow, with weapons of mass destruction, made that somehow turn into 9/11? I mean, it was just the most ridiculous, confabulated story I'd ever heard. And look at where that's taken us now. How many? 13, 14 years, 13 years later, and we're in the boat we're in because of some fabricated bullshit story.
And a lot of people still think Iraq is the one that brought the buildings down.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's insanity. And you know, there's anyone who looks at the 9/11 report, I mean, it is like a kindergartner almost could figure this is all crazy. Of all the crookedness that was in that. You know, our government may not have blown them up, did the planes, but you know what? They allowed it to happen if they didn't do it, if they weren't responsible altogether.
Yeah, I think they were responsible altogether. Look at the party that was behind that. All right, here, let me play the rest of this.
Allies, the coalition partners, if you will, reacting to this new emerging strategy?
Well, Wolf, you know many of the president's advisors, Secretary Kerry, Defense Secretary Hagel, recently we understand, have been calling for a more robust strategy in Syria. And when Secretary Kerry and General John Allen, who's the envoy to the global coalition, travel across the globe, they're talking with the allies. Some are saying, listen, the strategy to defeat ISIS only works if there's a more coherent plan for Syria's future. Secretary Kerry intensifying talks with allies. Arab diplomats tell CNN Kerry, Allen, and others have been pushing for a political roadmap, ultimately transitioning Assad from power. The U.S. went after ISIS in Iraq, first hoping that it would give the U.S. time to vet, train, and arm a moderate rebel force who would then go after ISIS, eventually Assad's regime. But officials now realize they don't have the time to go after Iraq first because the administration is battling, the opposition is battling two fronts, the regime and ISIS, and could be obliterated by the time the U.S. pivots from Syria to Iraq. So talk about expanding and accelerating the train and equip program with allies. Wolf, the vetting of those rebels hasn't even started yet. It's going to be very difficult. And you also don't have a viable plan for an opposition, a political opposition in Syria. But we understand that Secretary Kerry, key Arab allies, Turkey, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, even Russia involved. And Secretary Kerry has mentioned this on the margins of nuclear talks to Iranian Foreign Minister Zorie. So they're really hoping everybody can at least agree on a political transition. It's going to take a lot of time. And eventually they do want to see President Assad out, but maybe maintain a lot of the regime and the institutions of the state.
The Iranians certainly don't want to see President Bashar al-Assad out. They're close allies.
They're doing it.
And I'm going to tell you something. I just saw, I can tell you now that this is definitely what is fueling Russia, because I saw that Putin just inked a big-ass nuclear deal with Iran.
Yeah, I seen
that. That was just the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are lots of chess pieces moving right now. And if you heard all those countries that were behind removing Assad, just know that they all have vested interest in Syria being wide open.
Yep, they do.
This is unbelievable. It has taken us 4 years to get to this point. And now they're like, whoa, did you hear? We miscalculated arming all these moderate rebels. And remember Brandon saying, there are no moderate rebels.
Right, there aren't.
This is I hope he does a story, or he does his show next week on this or something.
Oh, me too.
Or maybe I'll message him and ask him if he can record something. I'll even play it on this show. Because when I saw this yesterday, I whacked right out. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Or maybe he can come on the show.
Well, he works, so.
Yeah, but someday.
The days that during the summer, he was off on Fridays, but he's not now. And then when he was on a couple weeks ago, he actually had just gotten back from his vacation, so he had that last day, but he typically isn't off during the day.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it would be great to have him record something, because I'd like to hear his spin on it.
Yeah, well, I dropped him this. So he messaged yesterday and said, he might have to do something about this. So like I said, I don't know if he's going to do a story or if he's going to record us a show, but I really want to hear his opinion, because this is such a bunch of convoluted bullshit. And again, I wish somebody had the time to document out of the last 6 years that Obama told us something and then did a 180 and completely changed everything that he said, that he convinced everyone one way and then said, oh, well, you know what, we're doing something completely different from what you bought into. And you know what? On that note, this is going to be my way to jump to where I've been trying to go since the beginning of the show. Hold on, because we got to find it now. I had to do all kinds of things. Oh, wait, here. Let's listen to one of these Russian troops moving tanks, and I will try to find the other thing that I wanted to find.
Okay.
Russia has moved tanks, troops, and equipment into Ukraine in recent days. The alliance's supreme commander, U.S. General Philip Breedlove, confirmed reports by international observers. He said, quote, "There is no question anymore that Russia's military is operating inside Ukraine."
What worries me the most, I have said before, is that we have a situation now where the former international border, the current international border of Ukraine and Russia is completely porous. It is completely wide open. Forces, money, support, supplies, weapons are flowing back and forth across this border completely at will.
The Russian Defense Ministry denied the claim, but Ukraine's government said it is redeploying troops amid fears that Russian-backed rebels will launch a new military offensive.
So there you go.
Wow.
Oh, hold on. Is this going to keep playing or not? I got to stop it. Okay. So where are we going to go from there? Well, we're going to talk about Barry's lies. Barry's lies, lies, and more lies.
There's
Here we
so
go.
many of them. How do
If you've got healthcare already, then you can keep your plan if you are satisfied with it. If you like the plan you have, you can keep it.
I intend to keep this promise. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan.
If you like your plan and your doctor, you can keep them.
You'll be able to keep your health care plan.
If you like your plan, you keep your plan.
If you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor. You can keep your plan.
If you like your current insurance, you keep that insurance. Period. End of story.
If you've got health insurance, you can keep it.
If you have insurance that you like, then you will be able to keep that insurance.
If you like your health care plan, you keep your health care plan.
Nobody's going to force you to leave your health care plan.
If you like your health care plan, you will keep your plan.
If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan.
If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan.
No matter what you've heard, if you like your doctor or health care plan, you can keep it.
If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan. If you like your private health insurance plan, you can keep it.
If you like your private health insurance plan, you can keep your plan. Period.
Nothing in this plan will require you or your employer to change the coverage of the doctor you have.
If you are among the hundreds of millions of Americans who already have insurance, nothing in my plan will require you or your employer to change the coverage or the doctor you have.
If you want to keep the health insurance you got, you can keep it. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
If you like the insurance plan you have now, you can keep it.
If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. So if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your plan, keep your plan. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance. If you like your insurance plan, you will keep it.
If you're happy with what you got, nobody's changing it. If you're one of the more than 250 million Americans who already have health insurance, you will keep your health insurance.
If you have health insurance, the only thing that changes for you is you're more secure. If you already have health care, the only thing this bill does is make sure that it's even more secure.
If you've got health insurance, you keep your own insurance.
Today, I want to speak plainly, clearly, honestly. If you already have health care, you don't have to do anything.
And everyone who already has health insurance will keep the benefits and protections this law already has put into place. Period.
Period.
Period. End of story.
You have or had one of these plans before the Affordable Care Act came into law, and you really liked that plan. What we said was you could keep it if it hasn't changed since the law's passed.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's something. So on the heels of this, doesn't this video emerge from this consultant on Obamacare yesterday?
Yeah, saying we used...
Yeah, wait, let me play it. Let me play it.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
The hottest story that may have slipped your attention concerns one of the folks behind Obamacare, an architect, a consultant, whatever you want to call him. MIT economist Jonathan Gruber made recorded comments in 2013 that just surfaced and are causing a little heartburn now for the Obama administration. Take a look.
You had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in. It made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money. It would not have passed. Okay, just like the people, lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And,
You heard that right. Let me quote him again. Lack of transparency, says Jonathan Gruber. Huge political advantage, he says. Basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really critical for healthcare reform to pass Congress. Thus far, this is not getting any play from the big three networks. So my question to you is why?
One of those stories that begins in the conservative media and now is beginning to percolate elsewhere. But it's notable, as some conservative media watchers have pointed out, that none of the three big evening newscasts have covered this topic, nor had any of the big morning shows until this morning when CBS did begin to cover it. I asked NBC and ABC why they haven't taken it on. They declined to comment. CBS said, look, we are covering it. Look at our morning show.
Yep.
But it's an example of one of these stories that becomes very politicized on the right, but then is barely heard about in the middle or on the left.
So let me just use a phrase that some of our friends like to use, and that being a mainstream media conspiracy.
Yeah, and in my experience, Brooke, at the New York Times, now at CNN, is that whenever you think there's a conspiracy, it's really just something much more mundane.
Yeah.
In this case, I think it's the fact that this is a video that's a year plus old, and it's something that, we're talking about a story that's been debated and covered endlessly. I think oftentimes in newsrooms there's a sense of, well, what's actually new here? But that said, the quote, the word stupid, that is news. And the way it's being used, and the way it's being used by conservatives is also news. So that's why it should be covered by the nightly newscast and should be covered by CNN.
I'm going to stop for a second, too, because here's the thing. Not only did he call the American voter stupid and say that because of lack of transparency, that was the only way that it got passed, but if we remember, the whole transparency issue was what Barry ran on, first of all, okay?
Yep, the most open government ever.
Right, and what else is interesting that I didn't hear anyone talk about is that this consultant, quote unquote, was another asshole from MIT.
Yep.
Right, we talked yesterday, the woman who created Jibo, the first social robot to insert between you and your family, is also an MIT robotics professor. This guy's an economics professor. Tons of federal money going into MIT, and they're just helping fuel things along.
Exactly.
Here, a little bit more. Now we have Gingrich pipe in.
This is from Josh Earnest, White House spokesperson today. This is what he said. I disagree vigorously. The fact of the matter is the process has been extraordinarily transparent, right? Responding to Gruber's notion that this was intentionally not transparent. We covered the story inside out here at CNN. In your assessment, was it not clear at the time that healthier folks would bear this greater financial burden because of those who would actually require more care? I mean, there was that huge push to get young people involved. Was there not?
Well, first of all insurance plans assume that there's some aggregated risk pool and that the healthy ultimately are helping those who aren't healthy. And you put in money when you're healthy in the hopes that when you're not healthy, you're going to get some of the money back. So that's basic insurance. But there's a contradiction in what he said.
How so?
The American people weren't stupid. They were lied to. If you watch the reaction to Obamacare as they began to learn more about it, they turned against it. So it's not the American people's stupidity. It's a president who said, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your hospital, etc., which were not true, and he's since admitted they weren't true. But
bingo, hence playing that clip first. Bingo. All right, a little bit more.
The arrogance behind what he said fits the whole administration.
The White House specifically now is distancing itself from Gruber, and it sounds to me that he was fairly integral in the building of this piece of signature legislation. What do you make of that distance?
Well, they're desperately trying to recover from a disastrous election, and they know that this is poisonous. Here's one of the key architects who was in the White House, was sent by the White House to the Congress, helped write the bill, And what he's talking to you about in an academic setting is he's being honest. He's saying, look, if people had thoroughly understood Obamacare, it would never have passed the Senate. It would never have become law. And we were very fortunate because much of this stuff was not understood and was not out in the open. I think that's actually an honest statement on his part. The fact that the White House is now, in effect, lying about having lied just tells you nothing has changed.
There you go.
Remember that famous line of Pelosi's, well, pass it and then you can read it.
Oh. Yeah, well, isn't that the way the NDAA happened too?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, well, there were only 2 senators that read it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, when you make a 2,000 to 4,000 page law and you give the people that are going to vote on it like 3 days to read it, come on.
Yeah. And I mean, they had all kinds of...
hottest.
They had all kinds of backdoor deals going on in this. And it really makes you wonder now after, and you had pointed out many times that Obama had kept changing the dates and changing, when the deadlines were, but he never made any type of changes to the law. And this was actually put through into law.
Right. And look at the IRS. That was covered up, that the IRS would be in charge. And there was so much hidden from them, never spoke about. And now, just now, people are noticing. And I guess this next tax time is going to bring out a lot more. From
well, here, there's one more clip, and I don't know if there's anything more in this one over the other, but let's check this one out.
The next enrollment period for Americans who want health insurance under Obamacare begins on Saturday. But all anyone in Washington is talking about is a tape that emerged recently of an Obamacare consultant telling folks what he really thinks of the Americans buying the insurance. Wyatt Andrews has our report.
MIT professor Jonathan Gruber was an intellectual architect of Obamacare, but here at a conference last year, he said the law was written to hide crucial details from an American public too dumb to understand.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
For example, Gruber said the penalty for not buying insurance, the very heart of the individual mandate, was labeled as a penalty and not a tax. Embarrassed Democrats quickly distanced themselves from Gruber. The White House pointed out he did not work at the White House. Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi turned Gruber into a stranger.
So I don't know who he is. He didn't have...
Maybe, but when the bill was being written, the administration paid Gruber almost $400,000 for technical advice on...
Stop. They paid him $400,000?
Yeah, but he wasn't involved.
But he wasn't involved. Yes. Pelosi's like, I don't know who he was.
Oh, God.
All right, hold on.
Drafting the law. Republicans, for their part, turned Gruber into an all-important player. Here is Senator Mitch McConnell.
And what this insider saying confirms that they were spinning tales from beginning to end because they knew they couldn't tell the truth about Obamacare and have a chance of passing it.
Gruber has said he regrets making those comments, but Scott, with Republicans taking over Congress and calculating how to scale back or defund Obamacare, this is ammunition.
Wyatt, thank.
Sure is.
Now, McConnell, of anybody that you should distrust, he just got his freight line just got busted with 90 pounds of cocaine.
Oh, is he the one?
Yes.
I missed that. I didn't realize who that was. Yeah, why don't you talk about that? Do you have that story?
Well, we talked about it the other day, and it's when he married his wife, that freight company was as part of them, and I mean they donated lots of money to his campaign. They're flying it under oh God, what's that, Lebanese flag, something like that, to avoid, and then the ports they get into. But even though he tried to distance himself, right there, he's right in the middle of it. And since he married that lady, his fortune has quadrupled to make him one of the richest people in Congress. I mean, it's like he is as crooked as it gets. And for him to speak out about anything, all this came out the day after he got reelected.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it was somebody, some Republican that had been like holding on to that footage? Because notice too, the new sign-up deadline is this Saturday. So think about what kind of a dent, if anyone, and maybe that's why it wasn't being publicized on any of the mainstream outlets, was because they didn't want to hurt Obamacare enrollment deadline numbers.
Well, you can't enroll even yet on the website.
Oh, is it
People
still broken?
can't.
No.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
And he says it's working. I don't know one person that has signed up, and I know a lot of people.
Well,
So
I
who
know
are-
a lot of people whose health insurance ended up getting canned.
Yeah.
And they got switched to another plan, and it doubled their rate.
Yep, that too. And, he fed this to all these people that were going to have free health care. Nobody gets free health care now.
Mm.
It used to be if you were poor, you could go in the hospital and they would cover it. And, you
went
were
to a
treated.
county hospital,
Well, not
absolutely.
even- Yeah, and if there's no county hospital nearby, you get to go to any hospital. And then a worker would come in and talk with you and fill out some forms. You still got treatment. Well, now a lot of them are refusing anyone that doesn't have the right, Obamacare, and nobody can get Obamacare. So what do? It's horrible. It's horrific.
Yeah, I'd like to understand how they're making money on this, because that's what the end result should be. I mean, that's what this was all about.
Wait till your taxes this next April.
Yeah, to give them, actually, as part of this law, didn't it give the IRS the right to go in and take funds?
Yeah, right out of your bank account without
so
even asking.
So I think that was a precedent that was set.
Yeah. And to put the IRS in charge, and yep, that's right. They have access in the bill to everyone's bank account. And like say you get fined or you haven't paid, usually a company will send you a notice and say you need to pay. Well, no, the IRS can go right into that your bank account, and withdraw the funds that are available.
Well, there was a story, and I think the video was actually on a channel that got taken down, but there was a story about probably more like 8 months ago, about a government worker who had an unpaid tax bill from her father who had passed away. And they went into the IRS went into her bank account and took the money for it.
Yep, I remember
without her permission.
That's it. Well, see, when you sign up for Obamacare, whether you do or not, but when it went into law, they can do that, and the only one that could do that would be the IRS, and that's why they were put in charge. And from everything I've gathered from just what people are saying, this April is going to be a big eye opener to people for the Obamacare, because it becomes in effect. So it's not working, but you keep hearing him in speech after speech going, and Obamacare is working, and that's why they're so angry. Well, that's a big lie, too.
I don't know. Does Obamacare cover Ebola treatment?
Yeah, good question.
That's what I want to know. If it covers Ebola treatment, I'm in.
It doesn't, you know what, and the board that decides whether you can have surgery or not aren't even doctors.
Oh, well, they're not right now either. If you have a commercial insurance company, it is the board of the insurance company, and they are they can be doctors, but they're not necessarily doctors. They can be pharmaceutical representatives or financial people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's a business, not,
And you have shareholders. Shareholders are what count, not your health.
Exactly. So Obamacare fits right in.
Mm-hmm. It's perfect. Well, and remember, Obamacare was not passed as a health care plan. So it is not covered under any of the non-corruption laws that they had passed to cover Medicare and Medicaid.
Right, because, the government does not have the right to force anyone in this country to buy anything. They can't make you buy from a private organization, which Obamacare is pretty much. It's all run corporately. But nowhere in the Constitution does it give the government a right to dictate our health care.
Well, and that's why, though, because it's not considered health care. It's going to be considered a tax. And this is a national plan, like a socialist country. We are going to have this plan that we give to everyone, and everyone is expected to pay into it. It's like kind of having to pay school tax, even if you've never had any kids.
Right. And, but the thing is, in other countries that have, like, the Netherlands, my friend that lives there, she can go to any doctor anytime without paying going and paying. But here, how are you doing that? You can't just go in. You have to have health insurance, Obamacare insurance with a deductible that is outrageous that people can't afford. It's up in the thousands before you can even use the Obamacare. I mean, this is not social medicine. This is a big
scam.
It's
not covered under any scam laws now. Yep. They could be patting each other on the ass and slipping a couple $100 bills.
And they say it was written
hookers
by
and booze, hookers and booze. That's how it works, guys. I'm telling you, when you want to get, like we talked yesterday about RFPs and RFIs on FBO.gov, doing business with the federal government. Trust me, man, we had a federal division. How do you think you get the business?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it. And that's why you hire some slick willies to be your sales guys who know how to chum around. And that's how it works, man. And guess what? The sales guys make bank, and so do the federal contracts. So
revolving door up
sure
there,
is.
too.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how it works.
I mean,
it's disgusting.
This government is so broken. The only way to repair it is to get rid of every single person in it.
All of them. Fire them.
Fire them.
Fire them. That's what I say. I've been on this kick for a long time, but having worked in corporate America, there is no corner of corporate America that you can consistently fail at your job and still get a six-figure freaking salary and all your bennies. Okay?
Exactly.
There isn't. You're not going to find a job like that.
But in our government, you get rewarded for it.
Very much
failing.
So. Yep. You are encouraged to be a failure.
Yep. They don't care about
to lie, to steal, and that's the new normal.
Uh-huh.
Again, like I talked about all the technology and mad science gone mad yesterday, but guess what, guys? It's all about the money.
Mm-hmm.
We don't care about humanity. It's all about the money. Screw everybody and get as much as you can, because the one who dies with the most toys wins. And you know what? That is the personality profile of a psychopath. That's how it works. That's why Dr. Simon's show is so important. That's why I've been enjoying his show so much on Sundays, is because the day that I realized that there was a disorder, first of all, called narcissistic disorder, and how it was all tied into psychopathy and all of these crazy traits that I've seen in loved ones as well as friends. I mean, and when I had my first conversation with Dr. Simon, he had been a guest of Michael Cross's on Unlock the Door from Saturday. That's how we met him. And he did a whole interview on psychopaths. And I was like, wow, this guy is great. And then he contacted me and said, I'd love to do a show on your network. So when we had a conversation then just about, he was explaining to me how he really went from conventional psychiatry to the point where he's at now, where he sees that this like global disorder has actually been created by our environment. Right? It's the screw everybody. I'm the most important. I want to buy things and have things and screw everybody else. Screw the environment because it's all for me. Right. It is our society that has created the psychopaths that are now running the freaking asylum.
Well, you're brainwashed from when you start school to obey, and that the law is good, and if you break the law, you're bad.
Well, and here's the dangling carrot to motivate you to do things without morals. Let's get rid of the moral structure, and let's just motivate you to do what we want you to do with the carrot. And the carrot is money. The carrot is war. The carrot is video games. The carrot is sweetened foods. High fructose corn syrup reacts on that same part of the brain that video games do, that violence does, that it's the adrenaline, the dopamine, okay? That creates this biological addiction to things. That is the key. Go all the way back to the early 20th century to Bernays. I mean, I've said it before, we blame it all on Bernays, but I'm telling you what, all the fingers point to there. That was the downfall of the American family, the downfall of our country. It started the slippery slope right there. That was when we had the Granddaddy Bush and IBM and you know, the whole Eastern European Nazism was all beginning. The wars, the military-industrial complex, it all started right then. The Industrial Revolution. Henry Ford, the assembly line.
Yep.
That was it, guys.
Yep. Everyone is a slave in this country. I mean, if they don't...
It took us from being dependent from being independent to dependent on the machine. That's right. The Depression then came in the 30s, and then they started welfare, and they wrote in Social Security, right? So you had your blanket. And not that these things are bad, because I definitely think that we should have, versus, you know, some other schools of thought, but I think that we should have a social net. I have no problem every week paying into a social net so that if something ever happens to me, there's something to cover me so I don't end up living in a cardboard box. But they've turned us into this social state now where people want... It's easier right now with the way the economy is, and they've pretty much cut our legs out from underneath us. It is easier now to get some sort of bennies or not get any bennies at all and start cashing in everything you saved up. Cashing in your 401 at 50% freaking tax.
Right. And, you know, it's like...
There are no real jobs.
What is it that we expect Congress to do? We expect them, like, they're not working if they aren't putting out more laws on us that they don't have to obey. But, you know, more and more laws, making criminals out of every one of us. And you're bad if you break those laws, but if you abide by them, you're a good slave.
But guess what? If you end up in the prison industrial complex, you now have 2 hots and a cot and health care.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? And there are some people out there
that
would be better off behind bars because they're sick or because they don't have food to eat. And they don't, I mean, wasn't that one quote unquote terrorist up in Canada? That was his deal. He was homeless.
Okay, but
he was staying in a mission and he wanted...
that worked for the prison system. She was a nurse, and she said the stories you hear about them getting good health care is all bullshit. And she was there for a year.
Yeah, but it's better than no health care.
Sometimes, but then look at the abuses that happen to inmates too. Though it's not,
well,
you know. I mean,
let me just tell you, I've seen a couple stories, and I've talked to a few people where that sentiment has been echoed a few times now. All I'm saying is things degrade in this country, is joblessness. I mean, what was the last real number that we heard? Like 30%? Some crazy number. Yeah. And we are so in debt. And I don't know. I mean, look at Detroit. Look at Ferguson. I mean, Ferguson, not only do they have all this unrest going on, but that's a pretty poor city, Ferguson.
Right.
That's not a very nice city. And how many other cities, and how about our entire infrastructure in the United States? Our electrical system, our highway system, it's falling apart. Our prison, but we can spend billions of dollars a day to send weapons and blow the shit out of people and fund drones everywhere and all this DARPA money. I just saw that they just gave a shit ton of money to anybody who wants it now. Anybody. It used to require a 40 to 60 page treatise on what you were going to use it for, what your research was going to be, how is it going to benefit us, blah, blah, blah. It is now down to a 4-page requirement to get funds from DARPA.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to find it.
Oh, good, because we only got a couple minutes left.
Easy money. That's what they're calling it. This is out of Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology News, November 12th, 2014, Ebola Watch. DARPA offers researchers easy money. Researchers and businesses looking to fund Ebola R&D. Now remember, Ebola is just the umbrella for Generation 2.0 RNAi messed up technology to get inside of our bodies to be able to control us at a cellular level, okay? This is what it's all about. This is why DARPA's involved. Researchers and businesses looking to fund Ebola R&D are among those eligible for up to $700,000 each in seed funds through a new U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, more affectionately known as DARPA initiative. DARPA says EZBAA will simplify the agency's funding process by requiring of applicants only, not a 4-page, a 2-page white paper describing their ideas. A traditional BAA, or what is called a broad agency announcement, requires forms of 40 to 60 pages and forces applicants to address a specified capability. DARPA says the EZBAA is open to any idea that can integrate, and get this, people, that can integrate biology and technology in revolutionary ways. Do you hear that?
Yep. Humanoids.
The entire show yesterday was leading up to this. I found this actually after the show. Integrate biology and technology, and all I got to give them is a 2-page white paper.
And they're saying by 2050, this is going to be happening.
2-page white paper to get myself $700,000 in seed funding. Let's do it. All of us. Let's do it. Shit, yeah. I could do a lot with 700 G's. I could tape processors to, I don't know, tomatoes.
There you go.
They would work, right? I could make a smart tomato.
I mean, any of us could write on 2 pages, fill that in.
Shit, yeah. I honestly, guys, I almost literally popped a blood vessel when I saw this story yesterday.
Most resumes are more than 2 pages.
No shit. This should be like the headline story on shit that pisses me off page.
Yep. Yes.
Oh.
Rocking, shaking.
I don't know. Do I read any more? I mean, I'm going to read that again. They are open to any idea that can integrate biology and technology in revolutionary ways.
Do they have a machine that can maybe make you suck your thumb?
Suck it for you? Actually, they did have a robot that...
Oh, jeez.
Don't you remember? It was the automated sperm bank?
Yeah, I do remember that. I had to think of it.
All right, guys, guess what? It is Friday. I am so happy.
I am not cold anymore.
And hey, don't forget. Hold on. Don't forget.
All ready. Then you can keep your plan. If you like the plan you have, you can keep it. I intend.
Perfect ending. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, you guys, make sure you stick around. It is Friday. We have Josh live tonight. Following this, we have Mr. Hal Anthony. We got John Stokes. We got Jack Blood. Anti-Media Radio Friday. Replay of Brandon's show and the replay of this week's United Front Against Austerity. All right, guys, I already have an awesome Friday. Crack a beer tonight. I'm going to try to be around. Thanks, Zorie, for being on with me. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.